Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to take a journey beyond the plot of Stranger Things to explore what the show actually teaches us about the human experience. We will wander through the warm nostalgia of the 80s, analyze the psychology of trauma and resilience, and uncover the deeper meanings behind the monsters and the heroes. So get comfortable, close your eyes if you wish, and let's begin. Hawkins, the setting of our tale, is more than just a fictional location on a map. It represents a universal memory of childhood innocence. It is the archetype of the sleepy community, where neighbors know one another by name and front doors are often left unlocked until the sun goes down. This town serves as a stand-in for the places many of us grew up in, or perhaps simply the places we wish we had known. It is a sanctuary of boredom and safety, a bubble where the most pressing concerns are school grades and the social dynamics of the playground. In this space, the world feels manageable and contained, a canvas of normalcy that makes the intrusion of the extraordinary that much more profound. Moving through these quiet streets are the bicycles, the ultimate symbols of early freedom for a generation raised before the digital age. To a child of this era, a bike was not merely transportation, it was a vessel of independence that expanded the boundaries of their existence. We see the beams of flashlights mounted on handlebars, cutting through the encroaching darkness, illuminating the path ahead in flickering cones of yellow light. The rhythm of pedaling is the heartbeat of adventure, a physical assertion of autonomy that allows one to outrun the supervision of parents. It captures that fleeting, magical period of life where the radius of one's world is determined solely by the strength of one's legs and the courage to pedal further away from home. However, the tranquility of a small town often harbors deep, expansive secrets that lie just beneath the surface of the mundane. In Hawkins, the silence is heavy with unspoken things, and the presence of the government laboratory on the outskirts serves as a constant, looming reminder of hidden power. These towns are often portrayed as simple, yet they are frequently layers of silence stacked upon one another, protecting truths that the polite society refuses to acknowledge. The proximity of the ordinary to the secretive creates a hum of tension in the air, a low frequency suggesting that the fabric of reality here is thinner than its inhabitants realize. It is a reminder that even in the safest places, there are doors that should remain closed. Surrounding this pocket of civilization are the woods, ancient and watchful, marking the threshold between the known world and the wild. Before the storm of the supernatural arrives, the forest possesses a profound stillness that commands a primal respect. In the dimming light, the trees twist into ominous shapes, and the rustle of unseen wildlife sounds deceptively like footsteps following close behind. This natural borderland is where the rules of the town dissolve, replaced by the indifference of nature. The silence here is not empty, it is waiting, holding its breath for the moment when the balance will tip. It is the calm before the arrival of something that defies explanation. As we observe this world, we are wrapped in a warm, protective blanket of nostalgia that softens the edges of the fear to come. We recognize the wood paneling on the walls, the rotary phones, and the specific glow of old television sets, artifacts that anchor us in a time that feels tangible and true. This nostalgia acts as a shield, allowing us to venture into the darkness of the story because we feel held by the familiarity of the setting. It whispers to us that even though the shadows are lengthening, we are watching from a safe distance, insulated by the memories of a bygone era. It creates a space where we can explore the concept of fear without being consumed by it. This is the ordinary world, the essential starting point of every great journey before the adventure truly begins. We are shown the fragile equilibrium of life, the dinner tables set for meals, the dogs barking in yards, and the sprinklers turning in rhythmic arcs, before the catalyst disrupts it all. It is a portrait of normalcy that is beautiful in its plainness, establishing the stakes of what must be protected. We take a deep breath in this moment of calm, grounding ourselves in the reality of the rational world. But even now, in a basement cluttered with games and imagination, the first dice are being rolled, signaling that the safety of this ordinary world is about to be shattered forever. In the dim, artificial light of a subterranean room, a group of friends gathers around a table scattered with paper and polyhedral dice. Here, the game of Dungeons and Dragons serves as far more than a simple pastime. It is an unconscious rehearsal for the moral complexities of real life. Within the safety of this rule-bound universe, they learn the weight of decisions, the necessity of sacrifice, and the definitions of heroism, long before the world demands it of them. They are testing their courage in a simulation, navigating scenarios where the difference between life and death is determined by a roll of the dice. It is a training ground for the spirit, where the concepts of loyalty and bravery are tried on, like armor to see how well they fit. This basement acts as an impenetrable fortress against the demands and logic of the adult world upstairs. To descend the wooden steps is to leave behind the expectations of parents, teachers, and society, entering a kingdom where they are the sole rulers. In this space, the ordinary laws of physics and social hierarchy are suspended, replaced by the lore of their own making. It is a physical separation that mirrors a psychological one, creating a boundary that feels thick and protective. Here, the noise of the outside world is muffled by the earth itself, allowing a rare and sacred privacy where they can be entirely themselves without fear of judgment or intrusion. Within these wood-paneled walls, the power of imagination creates a shared reality that often feels stronger and more vibrant than the truth waiting outside. When the dungeon master speaks, the cheap plastic figurines on the table dissolve, replaced in their minds by towering giants and fire-breathing dragons. This collective hallucination is a testament to the strength of their bond. They all agree to see the invisible world at the exact same moment. It is a form of alchemy, turning the mundane afternoon into a high-stakes epic where they are the protagonists of a grand history. This shared vision binds them together more tightly than any playground game ever could, for they have fought wars together in the theater of the mind. There's a specific tactile comfort to be found in the chaotic clutter of such a safe space. The room is filled with the detritus of childhood, old rugs, discarded comic books, and the empty wrappers of snacks consumed hours ago. This messiness is not a sign of neglect, but rather a signature of life being lived fiercely and without reservation. It creates a cozy, insulated atmosphere where every object has a history and a purpose known only to the inhabitants. This environment acts as a cocoon, a warm and enclosed universe that feels tailored specifically to their needs, contrasting sharply with the sterile and ordered spaces often imposed by adults. Friendship in this era is defined by this physical proximity, by the sheer number of hours spent breathing the same air in a small room. It is built on a foundation of shared snacks, inside jokes, and the long, stretching silence of deep concentration. There's no digital intermediary here. Their connection is forged through eye contact and the immediate reactions to victory or defeat. They learn the subtle language of each other's expressions, knowing when a friend is bluffing or when they are genuinely afraid. It is an intimacy born of boredom and excitement intertwined, a brotherhood cemented by the simple act of enduring time together in a space they call their own. This gathering also highlights the purity of obsession that exists in a pre-digital childhood, where focus is undivided and intense. Without the constant interruption of notifications or the allure of infinite screens, their attention is poured entirely into the narrative they are constructing. They memorize complex rules and encyclopedic statistics with a dedication that adults reserve for careers, treating the game with a solemnity that borders on the religious. This single-mindedness allows them to dive deep, to fully inhabit the roles they have chosen, and to experience a level of immersion that becomes increasingly rare as the distractions of the modern world encroach. In the end, we retreat to these controlled environments to explore our fears before they can actually hurt us. The basement allows them to face monsters that can be defeated, to experience terror that can be ended by simply closing a book or turning on the lights. It is a safe way to touch the darkness, to understand the shape of fear without the risk of being consumed by it. But as the campaign wraps up and the dice are collected, there's a lingering sense that the game has served its purpose. They've practiced facing the unknown just in time, for the lights above them are about to flicker, signaling that the monsters are no longer content to stay on the board. The narrative shifts now to the interior of a home that has suddenly become too quiet, centering on Joyce Byers and the terrifying ancient power of maternal intuition. When a child vanishes, the world expects a mother to collapse, to fold inward under the weight of grief. But here, we witness a reaction that defies the passive expectations of mourning. It is a visceral, primal refusal to accept the reality presented by the visible world. This intuition is not merely a hunch, it is a physical tether, an invisible umbilical cord that stretches across dimensions, but never truly breaks. Joyce feels the presence of the lost boy not with her five senses, but with a sixth sense, that is awakened only by the deepest form of loss. It is a reminder that the bond between parent and child is perhaps the only force in the universe capable of challenging the laws of physics. In the face of such a crisis, the polite social norms that usually govern our behavior begin to disintegrate. We watch as the routines of daily life, working a shift at the store, cooking dinner, maintaining appearances, are discarded like useless artifacts. The house transforms from a domestic space into a chaotic command center, where the only objective is retrieval. There's a raw honesty in this breakdown. It reveals that our adherence to social etiquette is a luxury of peacetime. When the safety of a loved one is at stake, the fear of judgment evaporates. We see a woman who no longer cares how she is perceived by the town, realizing that the opinions of neighbors hold no currency in the economy of survival. Then, the atmosphere changes, charged by the crackle of static and the hum of voltage. We explore the idea of communication transcending the physical plane through the medium of electricity. The telephone, usually a mundane appliance of convenience, becomes a terrifying instrument of contact. It rings with a sound that seems to echo from a hollow distance, carrying silence that is heavy with intent. Electricity becomes the language of the lost, a way to knock on the walls of reality from the other side. It suggests that energy is never destroyed, only translated, and that the flickering of a bulb is not always a malfunction, but a Morse code of the soul. The lights in the house cease to be sources of illumination and become voices speaking in a dialect of flashes and surges. This visual cacophony culminates in the stringing of the Christmas lights, a metaphor that hangs glowing against the floral wallpaper. In any other context, these multicolored bulbs represent holiday cheer and organized celebration. Here, they are repurposed into a desperate map of hope in the darkness. The image of the alphabet painted on the wall, crowned by a tangled web of wires, is one of the most poignant symbols of the human need to connect. It represents the attempt to impose order on chaos, to build a bridge of syntax over an abyss of silence. The lights are a beacon, a signal fire lit on the shore of our reality, guiding a ship lost in a sea of shadows. It teaches us that even when we are surrounded by darkness, we have the capacity to string together our own constellations to find the way back to one another. To the outside observer, this behavior looks like madness. We see the skeptical glances of those who rely solely on logic, the pitying looks of people who believe they are witnessing a mind unraveling. But this perceived insanity often masks a deeper, unseen truth. The story validates the idea that those who appear the most broken may actually be the only ones seeing the picture clearly. It challenges the definition of sanity, asking whether it is crazier to believe in the impossible or to accept a lie simply because it is easier to digest. Joyce's frenzy is not a symptom of delusion, but the frantic work of a mind that is tuned into a frequency no one else can hear. This journey requires a level of relentless persistence that is exhausting simply to witness. There's no rest in this house, no sleep, no pause for breath. It is a testament to the endurance of the human spirit when it is fueled by love. We see the physical toll of this quest, the trembling hands and the wide, unblinking eyes, yet the body refuses to shut down. It is a persistence that ignores the insurmountable odds, grabbing an axe to chop through the very walls of the home. It suggests that if we look hard enough and long enough, we can find cracks in the facade of the world, provided we are willing to destroy the architecture of our own lives to find them. Fundamentally, this chapter is a lesson in trusting a gut feeling against the cold logic of the world. Every piece of empirical evidence, every authority figure, and every rational thought points to a tragic conclusion. The world says gone, but the gut says here. Listening to that quiet internal voice requires a bravery that outweighs physical courage. It is the act of standing alone in a room full of people who think you are wrong and holding fast to your own truth. As the lights flicker and the walls hum, we learn that sometimes the heart possesses data that the mind cannot comprehend, and that the sheriff, now standing on the porch with his morning coffee, will soon have to decide which version of the truth he is willing to believe. On the edge of town, where the manicured lawns give way to the overgrown banks of a lonely lake, stands a wooden cabin that serves as a monument to isolation. Inside, we find Jim Hopper, a man existing in the heavy, suffocating silence of unresolved grief. The morning light here does not signify a fresh start. Rather, it highlights the dust motes dancing in the stagnant air of a life paused. This is the habitat of a person who has survived the worst thing imaginable, the loss of a child, and found that survival is not the same thing as living. The silence in this trailer is not peaceful, it is weight, a physical pressure that presses down on the chest, making every breath a conscious effort. It is the sound of a house where no one is laughing and where the future has been canceled in favor of an endless, looping present. We watch as he moves through the motions of the morning with the mechanical precision of a man sleepwalking. The routine is specific and unyielding. The rattle of pills, the hiss of a lit cigarette, and the pouring of coffee that is often spiked with something stronger to dull the edges of the day. This is not a ritual of preparation, but of anesthesia. He's putting on his uniform not with pride, but as a costume that allows him to pass for a functioning member of society. There's a tragedy in watching a capable man reduce his existence to the bare minimum required to keep his heart beating. He is physically present, occupying space in the world, yet his spirit is miles away, stuck in a hospital room in the past, refusing to move forward because moving forward feels like leaving his daughter behind. When he arrives at the station, this internal desolation manifests as a thick, impenetrable layer of cynicism. His declaration that mornings are for coffee and contemplation is more than a humorous deflection. It is a boundary line. By dismissing the concerns of the town as trivial, by treating a missing child report as likely a case of a misunderstanding or a runaway, he protects himself. Caring requires energy, and more importantly, caring opens the door to pain. Cynicism acts as a shield for a broken heart, a callous armor that deflects hope, so the disappointment cannot find a way in. If he convinces himself that the world is simple, disappointing, and transactional, he never has to risk being devastated by it again. He wears his apathy like a badge, challenging anyone to make him feel something. However, the story hinges on the moment this shield is forced down. As the reality of the situation in Hawkins becomes undeniable, we witness the transformative power of accepting a new responsibility. It is a slow, grinding shift, like the gears of a rusted machine forcing themselves into motion. The search for the missing boy stops being a job and starts being a calling. We see the exact moment the fog clears from his eyes, replaced by a sharp, predatory focus. This is the awakening of the dormant protector. It suggests that the only cure for the paralysis of personal grief is often found in the service of others. By taking on the burden of another parent's loss, he begins to find a purpose for his own pain, converting it from a dead weight into a driving fuel. This journey teaches us that true protection requires emotional vulnerability. To effectively hunt for the lost boy, the sheriff must allow himself to empathize with the mother, Joyce. He has to revisit the dark corridors of his own history to understand the desperation driving her. He cannot remain the detached lawman. He must become the grieving father once more. This is a terrifying prospect, for it demands that he lower his defenses and walk back into the fire he spent years running from. We learn that you cannot save someone from a distance. You have to get in the mud with them. His strength does not come from his badge or his gun, but from his capacity to understand the depth of the void that threatens to swallow the town, because he has lived in that void himself. As the investigation deepens, we witness the slow thaw of a frozen soul. The connections he forms with the frantic mother, with the confusing clues, even with the deputies he previously ignored, begin to melt the ice around his heart. We see glimpses of the man he used to be, sharp, intuitive, and relentlessly brave. The apathy recedes, revealing a core of fierce moral clarity. It is a beautiful, subtle resurrection. He begins to care not just about the case, but about the outcome, about the people involved, and crucially about the truth. This thawing process is painful, as returning circulation often is, but it is necessary. It illustrates that we are not meant to survive in isolation, and that sometimes life pulls us back into the fray, whether we gave it permission to or not. Above all, Hopper embodies the quiet nobility of the reluctant guardian. He is not the shining knight who seeks glory. He is the tired man who stands up because no one else can. His heroism is found in his exhaustion, in the heavy sighs before he walks into danger, and in the way he keeps going despite every instinct telling him to stay down. There's a profound dignity in doing the right thing when you have no hope left for yourself. He becomes the gatekeeper, the one who stands between the town and the encroaching dark. But as he steps into the woods to search for one lost child, shining his light into the dense underbrush, he is unaware that the forest is hiding another child, a girl with no name and no home, who is waiting for someone to find her. Deep within the dripping foliage of the rainy forest, we encounter the ultimate outsider seeking a place to rest. 11 appears not as a hero, but as a fugitive from a nightmare, shivering in a hospital gown that offers no protection against the chilling Indiana air. She is a tabula rasa, a blank slate dropped into a world she does not understand, wandering through the darkness with the wide, terrified eyes of a hunted animal. Her presence in the woods disrupts the natural order, for she is neither predator nor prey, but something entirely different, a child who has never been allowed to be a child. She is looking for safety in a landscape that offers none, moving through the shadows with a silence that has been drilled into her by a lifetime of captivity. Her silence speaks volumes about the trauma of being treated as an object rather than a person. Upon her arm sits a tattoo, a stark series of numbers that marks her as inventory in a sterile, government-run warehouse. For her entire existence, she was not a daughter or a student, but a piece of sensitive equipment designed for espionage and warfare. This dehumanization has stripped her of a personal history, leaving her with only the cold, hard memories of tests and sensory deprivation tanks. We see in her flinching reactions that she expects pain as a default response to attention, a heartbreaking conditioning that reveals the cruelty of the hands that shaped her. In this new world, language becomes a tool for connection rather than just a mechanism for receiving orders. Her vocabulary is limited, consisting of fragments and monosyllables, yet every word she speaks carries a profound weight. When she learns words like friend or promise, she's not just adding to a lexicon, she's building the foundation of a soul. We witness the struggle to articulate complex emotions with simple tools, a process that strips communication down to its most essential and honest elements. It reminds us that connection does not require eloquence. It requires the intent to reach out and the vulnerability to be understood. This journey of healing begins with the profound impact of the first act of kindness. When she is offered dry clothes or a warm place to sit, it is a revolutionary event in her timeline. These small gestures, which seem mundane to us, are earth-shattering to someone who has known only cold observation. The boys who find her do not treat her as a specimen to be studied, but as a girl who is cold and hungry. This shift, from being a subject to being a guest, cracks the armor of her conditioning. It suggests that the antidote to years of systematic cruelty can sometimes be found in the simple, instinctive charity of strangers who refuse to leave someone behind. Slowly, we see symbols of newfound domesticity take on a sacred quality. A worn-out recliner in a cluttered basement becomes a throne of safety, and a frozen waffle becomes a culinary revelation. These objects, the Egos and the furniture, represent her first exercise in preference and pleasure. For the first time, she is allowed to want something simply because she likes it, not because she was told to. This attachment to the mundane is touching because it highlights how much she has been denied. She clutches these small comforts with a fierce possession, grounding herself in the physical reality of a home she is just beginning to understand. However, she must also navigate the terrifying waters of defining morality when one has been raised as a weapon. She possesses the power to harm, a telekinetic force honed by scientists to kill and destroy. Now, free from her handlers, she must decide on her own when to use this violence. We watch her grapple with the instinct to protect her new friends using the only method she knows, overwhelming force. It is a complex internal battle, realizing that the skills she was given to destroy can be used to save, but that the line between defense and aggression is dangerously thin. She's a loaded gun, learning how to carry herself without the safety on. At its heart, this segment of the story is about the terrifying beauty of discovering one's own agency. She realizes that she is not merely a puppet of the laboratory or a passive observer of the boy's adventure. She has the power to choose to stay, to choose to trust, and to choose who she wants to be. It is the dawn of her personhood, a sunrise breaking over the landscape of a devastated childhood. As she looks around the basement at the faces of the boys who have taken her in, she understands that she is no longer just the number on her arm. She is part of something larger, a collective that operates by a strict and sacred code she's about to learn. In the vacuum left by the missing boy, a new and rigorous moral code begins to solidify among those who remain. At the center of this ethical framework is a simple 3-word sentence that carries the weight of a commandment. Friends do not lie. In the complex landscape of adulthood, deception is often used as a social lubricant, a way to spare feelings or navigate difficult politics. But for these children, truth is the only currency that matters. This mantra is not merely a rule for good behavior, it is a survival mechanism. In a world where adults obscure the truth to protect the youth, and where government agencies manufacture entire realities to hide their mistakes, the ability to trust one another becomes the bedrock of their existence. It establishes a circle of absolute clarity in a town filled with fog. This unbreakable bond is forged not just in shared interests, but in shared trauma. These boys are the outcasts, the targets of bullies, and the ones picked last for teams. This shared experience of being on the periphery of the social hierarchy creates a tribe with fierce internal loyalty. They understand that they are stronger together than they are apart. Their friendship is a fortress, and to lie to a member of the party is to weaken the walls of that fortress from the inside. It is a betrayal of the one place where they are supposed to be safe. This demand for radical honesty binds them tighter than blood, creating a unit that moves and thinks as a single organism. We see this commitment physicalized in the ritual of the handshake, a gesture that serves as a sacred, wordless contract. It is a clumsy, elaborate movement of hands that might look silly to an observer, but to them, it is a binding legal document. When hands are clasped and fingers are locked, a promise is sealed in the physical realm. It supersedes any verbal agreement or pinky promise. It is an acknowledgement that they are in this together, regardless of the danger or the consequences. This ritual acts as a grounding wire, reminding them of who they are and who they are fighting for when the fear threatens to overwhelm them. However, the introduction of the girl from the woods tests the elasticity of this group dynamic. Navigating the friction when the circle expands is a painful process. We watch as jealousy and skepticism threaten to fracture the party. The arrival of a stranger disrupts the established ecosystem, forcing them to reevaluate their roles. One sees a weapon, another sees a crush, and another sees a liability. This tension is necessary, for it forces the group to mature. They learn that a party is not a static entity. It is a living thing that must adapt to survive. They must learn to make room for the unknown without letting the structure collapse. Crucially, this journey highlights forgiveness as a necessary mechanic of long-term friendship. They fight, they scream, and they separate. The story does not present a sanitized version of childhood where everyone gets along perfectly. Instead, it shows the jagged edges of conflict. But the true power of their bond is found in the return. It is the courage to ride a bike back to a friend's house after a fight and offer an apology. It is the understanding that a mistake does not equal an exit. This resilience teaches them that love is not about never hurting each other. It is about the willingness to heal the wound and keep moving forward. This collective loyalty gives them the courage to break the rules of the civilized world for the sake of the tribe. They steal supplies, they deceive their parents, and they trespass on forbidden ground. In their eyes, the law of the party supersedes the law of the land. They are operating under a higher jurisdiction, one defined by the immediate necessity of saving their friend. This rebellious spirit is not born of malice, but of a desperate, ferocious love. It illustrates how childhood pacts shape our adult moral compass, teaching us that sometimes doing the right thing means disobeying the authority figures who have lost their way. As they stand united, their bicycles align like cavalry horses. They are no longer just a group of kids playing a game. They have become a phalanx, armored by their promises to one another. They have established a foundation of trust that will be the only thing standing between them and the encroaching void. They will need this unity, for the ground beneath their feet is thinner than they realize, and the world they are about to enter is a twisted, decaying reflection of their own, a shadow dimension where the air is cold, the light is dim, and the concept of friendship is the only warmth left. Beyond the veil of our perceived reality lies a mirror image, a dark echo of the world we know. This alternate dimension serves as a terrifying physical metaphor for the states of depression and decay. It is the same town, with the same buildings and the same streets, yet it has been stripped of all warmth and vitality. Standing in this place is like standing in the ruins of a memory that has been corrupted by sadness. It represents the internal landscape of a mind that has lost its connection to hope, a world where the sun never rises and the colors have been drained away, leaving only shades of blue and gray. It suggests that the most frightening place we can go is not a foreign land, but a version of our own home where love no longer exists. The air in this shadow realm is thick with a substance that resembles falling snow, but it is actually ash and spores, drifting endlessly in the cold currents. This atmosphere represents a world without the breath of life. To breathe here is to inhale toxicity, a direct parallel to how toxic isolation feels to the human spirit. The cold is pervasive, a chill that seeps into the bones not because of the weather, but because of the absolute absence of energy. It is a visual representation of emotional numbness, where the environment itself is hostile to the concept of growth. In this place, nothing blooms. Things only fester and spread, covering the familiar landmarks of childhood in a web of slime and rot. Isolation here manifests as a physical, toxic environment. The vines that snake across the walls and the floors are like the intrusive thoughts that bind a person when they are at their lowest. They constrict and hold, making movement difficult and escape seem impossible. The world itself seems to be conspiring to keep the traveler trapped in its gloom. It is a profound commentary on the nature of loneliness. When we are cut off from our community and our support systems, the world does not just feel empty, it feels predatory. The silence is not the peaceful quiet of a library, but the heavy, oppressive silence of a tomb, broken only by the wet, shifting sounds of things that should not be alive. Roaming this desolate landscape is the monster, a creature that is often a twisted reflection of ourselves. It is a faceless hunter, driven only by the instinct to consume. In many ways, it represents the destructive power of our own unprocessed trauma. It does not reason and it does not bargain, it simply feeds. This beast is the embodiment of the darkness that exists within the human psyche, the part of us that lashes out when we are hurt or afraid. It lives in the shadow because it cannot survive the light of scrutiny. To face the monsters, to acknowledge that there are parts of our existence that are ugly and dangerous, lurking just beneath the surface of our polite, daily interactions. The state of this dimension also teaches us a harsh lesson about neglect. The buildings are dilapidated and covered in biological growth, showing us what happens when we stop caring for our world. It suggests that without the maintenance of love, attention, and community, everything eventually succumbs to the rot. If we neglect our relationships, our minds, and our societies, the entropy of the upside down begins to bleed through. It is a warning that the darkness is always waiting for a foothold, ready to expand into the spaces we leave unguarded. The decay is not passive, it is an active force that claims whatever is left behind. There's a stark contrast between the deafening silence of this shadow world and the noise of life above. Up on the surface, there are radios playing, cars driving, and people arguing. Down here, the silence is absolute and terrifying. It highlights how much we rely on the background noise of existence to feel safe. The absence of sound forces one to confront their own thoughts, which can be the most dangerous confrontation of all. In this void, every snap of a twig sounds like a gunshot, amplifying the fear to an unbearable degree. It is a sensory deprivation tank turned inside out, where the lack of stimulus becomes a source of panic rather than peace. This descent into the shadow forces us to face the darkness that exists beneath the surface of normalcy. We like to believe that our world is solid and secure, but the existence of this shadow dimension proves that the barrier between safety and danger is paper thin. We walk on a tightrope over an abyss, often unaware of how close we are to falling. It reminds us that the monsters are not in a faraway castle. They are under our feet, in the walls, and sometimes in the mirror. But to fight back against this encroaching dark, we need more than just courage. We need clarity. We need to be able to see the truth, to capture the fleeting evidence of the monster, and to find someone who is willing to look at the picture and believe what they see. In the quiet corners of the high school and the solitude of the dark room, we find Jonathan and Nancy, two disparate souls united by a need to see the world as it truly is. For Jonathan, the camera is more than a piece of mechanical equipment. It is a shield that allows him to participate in the world without having to touch it. He exists on the periphery, an observer who captures the fleeting moments of reality that others are too busy or too distracted to notice. Photography, in this context, becomes a desperate attempt to preserve the truth in a town where the truth is constantly shifting. The shutter speed arrests time, holding a fraction of a second still, so that it can be examined, analyzed, and understood. It is the belief that if you look at an image long enough, the secrets hidden in the background will eventually reveal themselves. This pursuit of clarity brings him into the orbit of Nancy, a young woman trapped in the tension between social popularity and personal authenticity. On the surface, her life is a curated performance of suburban perfection, filled with the right clothes, the right friends, and the right boyfriend. But the lens of the camera exposes the cracks in this facade. It captures the hesitation in a smile and the loneliness in a crowded room. The story uses photography to strip away the layers of pretense, showing us that the image we project to the world is often a poor reflection of who we actually are. It forces the characters to confront the uncomfortable reality that their social standing offers no protection against the encroaching darkness. As the mystery deepens, their investigative spirit transforms into a vital coping mechanism for fear. Faced with a monster that defies logic, they do not retreat. They arm themselves with flashbulbs and questions. This proactive approach is a way of imposing order on chaos. If they can track the beast, if they can understand its habits and its hunting grounds, they can reduce it from a mythical nightmare to a biological entity that can be killed. The act of investigation is a refusal to be a victim. It suggests that knowledge is the primary weapon against terror, and that the only way to conquer the fear of the unknown is to make it known. This shared journey into the heart of danger accelerates the intimacy of romance in a way that normal teenage life never could. When you are buying bear traps and gasoline instead of movie tickets, the trivialities of dating evaporate. The pretense of playing it cool is impossible when you are fighting for survival. We witness the rapid formation of a bond that is forged in the fire of shared trauma. They see each other at their most vulnerable, terrified, desperate, and unpolished, and they find that they prefer these raw versions of each other. It teaches us that true connection is often found in the trenches, where the masks we wear are melted away by the heat of the moment. The monster hunt itself serves as a profound metaphor for the act of confronting difficult truths. It is easier to look away, to pretend that the shadow in the woods was just a deer, or that the missing friend simply ran away. To hunt the monster is to voluntarily look at the thing that everyone else is trying to ignore. It is an act of bravery that requires them to reject the comfortable lies offered by adults and authority figures. They are developing a specific kind of vision, one that acknowledges the ugly, sharp-toothed realities of the world, rather than hiding from them under the covers. In essence, this partnership is about finding a person who validates your specific worldview. For a long time, both Jonathan and Nancy felt isolated, one by his weirdness, the other by her perfection. By finding each other, they find proof that they are not crazy. There's a profound relief in having a witness, someone who looks at the photograph of the monster and says, "I see it too." It anchors them in sanity when the rest of the world is gaslighting them. They provide each other with the footing needed to stand firm. But as they prepare to face the beast, wielding a baseball bat and a camera, the narrative shifts its gaze to another figure who is about to have his entire understanding of status and strength dismantled. The king of the high school is about to learn that in a world of monsters, a crown is just a piece of metal, and true royalty is defined by who is willing to bleed for his friends. In the harsh fluorescent glare of the high school hallway, we are introduced to the classic archetype of the teenage king. Steve Harrington begins his narrative existence sitting atop a hierarchy that feels absolute and unshakable. He is the ruler of the cafeteria and the parking lot, draped in the armor of perfect hair and unearned confidence. In this ecosystem, social capital is the only currency that matters, and he is the wealthiest man in town. But the story takes care to deconstruct this cliché, peeling back the layers of arrogance to reveal the terrified boy beneath. We learn that this posturing is often a defense mechanism, a performance put on to hide a deep-seated insecurity about one's place in the world. The crown is heavy and the kingdom is small, limited to the few square miles of a town that ultimately does not care about popularity. Steve's journey is one of the most profound arcs of humility we witness. To find his true self, he must first lose everything he thought defined him. He loses the girl, he loses his social standing, and he loses the fight. This systematic dismantling of his ego is painful to watch, but it is necessary. It suggests that sometimes we must be broken down before we can be built back up into something substantial. The swagger fades, replaced by a bruised and battered reality. In the silence of his empty pool or the loneliness of his car, he confronts the fact that the script he was handed by society, the one where the popular jock wins the day, is a lie. He has to write a new one, without an audience and without applause. This realization comes crashing down with the understanding that popularity offers no protection against monsters. The creatures from the shadow dimension do not care about Letterman jackets or prom courts. In the face of primal danger, the social hierarchy dissolves instantly, leaving everyone equal in their vulnerability. Steve learns that his status is a fragile construct that offers no shield against the teeth of the unknown. It is a sobering lesson in the irrelevance of human vanity when pit against the forces of nature. The things that made him important in the hallways are useless in the woods, and he is forced to find new tools if he wishes to survive. One of these tools is a baseball bat, modified with rusted nails driven through the wood. It is a crude, brutal instrument, far removed from the polished image he once cultivated. Yet this weapon becomes a symbol of his unexpected defense. When he spins it in his hands, he's not swinging for a home run, he's drawing a line in the sand. It represents the shift from passive entitlement to active participation. He's no longer the prince waiting to be served, he's the soldier standing at the gate. The bat is ugly and dangerous, much like the situation he finds himself in, and wielding it requires a grit he didn't know he possessed. Crucially, his transformation is cemented by the act of letting go. He realizes that he cannot hold on to a relationship that has outgrown him. Watching the person he loves find solace in someone else is a specific kind of heartbreak, one that requires a maturity far beyond his years. Instead of fighting to possess, he steps back. This act of release is his first true moment of adulthood. He accepts that love is not about ownership, but about wanting the best for the other person, even if that means removing himself from the equation. It is a quiet victory of the heart, proving that he is capable of a selfless act in a selfish world. In the vacuum left by his old life, he finds an unexpected path to redemption through the role of the caretaker. He becomes the accidental babysitter, the shepherd for a flock of chaotic, danger-prone children. This is not a role he asked for, nor one he initially wants, but it fits him perfectly. We see a new kind of value emerge, not the value of being admired, but the value of being needed. There's a profound purpose in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. He discovers that his strength is not for intimidation, but for preservation. The king of Steve's castle becomes the guardian of the basement, a much more noble title. Ultimately, he completes the transition from predator to protector. The boy who once broke a camera to humiliate an outsider now throws himself in front of danger to save that same outsider's brother. He takes the hits so that others don't have to. It is a redemption song played out in punches and bandages. He learns that the only legacy worth having is the safety of your friends. But as the dust settles and the adrenaline fades, the story turns its attention to the boy who was missing from the start, the quiet, artistic soul who, even after being found, remains trapped in a different kind of prison, where time stands still and the cold never truly leaves his bones. When the sirens fade and the hospital monitors are turned off, the world expects a return to normalcy. But for Will Byers, the boy who vanished into the shadow dimension, coming home is not the same as returning to the life he left behind. He walks through the hallways of his school and the rooms of his house like a ghost haunting his own timeline. While he was trapped in the cold, toxic air of the alternate world, time in the real world kept marching forward without him. He finds himself out of sync with the rhythm of his age, a traveler who has missed the train, and is now standing on the platform watching the distance grow between him and his peers. The trauma of his disappearance has frozen a part of him in a permanent state of childhood, a desperate desire to remain in the safety of the way things were before the monsters came. This dissonance is most painfully felt in the basement, the very sanctuary that once held them all together. Will desperately tries to rally his friends for another campaign of Dungeons and Dragons, seeking to resurrect the magic of their shared imagination. But he looks around the table and realizes with a sinking heart that the eyes of his friends have drifted elsewhere. They are beginning to look at girls, to care about social standing, and to view the game as a childish relic they are slowly outgrowing. For the boy who lost a year of his life to darkness, the game is not just a game. It is the only place where the rules make sense and where he still belongs. The pain of being left behind is not malicious. It is the slow, quiet tragedy of growing apart, a natural erosion that feels like a betrayal to the one who is holding on the tightest. The experience of the other side has created a permanent sense of being other that no amount of therapy or normalcy can erase. He's branded with the cruel nickname Zombie Boy by the school bullies, a label that hurts because it rings with a hollow sort of truth. He feels different, altered by the exposure to a reality that should not exist. It is a loneliness that goes deeper than social isolation, It is biological and spiritual. He carries the cold of the upside down in his bones, a chill that a warm bath or a heavy coat cannot dispel. This trauma creates a glass wall between him and the rest of the world, where he can see and hear everyone else, but he cannot quite touch them, and they cannot truly understand the frequency at which he now vibrates. This internal alienation manifests physically, a lingering connection to the shadow that hovers on the back of his neck. It is a prickle of hair standing on end, a cold breath that whispers of danger when the sky turns a certain shade of gray. This sensation is the somatic memory of fear, a reminder that the link between the victim and the predator is never fully severed. He is a human barometer for the encroaching darkness, feeling the storm before the clouds even gather. It suggests that trauma leaves a physical footprint on the body, a reflex that keeps the survivor in a state of perpetual alertness. He's never fully safe, for his own body betrays him, acting as an antenna for the monster that wants to reclaim him. In this suffocating silence, art becomes the only safe outlet for fears that are too large to be spoken aloud. Words fail to capture the scale of the shadow monster or the texture of the rot, so he turns to crayons and paper. We see him frantically filling page after page, a storm of black lines and chaotic shapes that form a map of his internal terror. Drawing becomes a way to purge the poison, to take the abstract horror in his mind and trap it on a flat surface where it can be seen and perhaps controlled. It is a testament to the necessity of creation as a survival tool. When the world refuses to believe you, and when your own words sound like madness, the act of making art is the only way to scream without making a sound. The climax of this internal struggle takes place in the rain, at the site of Castle Byers, the stick fort in the woods that once served as his ultimate refuge. This structure was the architectural heart of his childhood, a place where the password was wisdom and the world was kept at bay. But as the thunder rolls and the reality of his isolation crashes down on him, the fort transforms from a sanctuary into a symbol of a time that is dead. Standing in the downpour, he realizes that he cannot hide inside these sticks anymore. The walls are too thin, the roof is leaking, and the magic that held it together has evaporated. It is a heartbreaking realization that the places we built to protect our innocence eventually become cages that prevent us from growing. In the taxonomy of the party, where there's a leader, a cleric, and a ranger, there's also the essential role of the bard, the keeper of lore, and the voice of reason. Dustin Henderson occupies this space, approaching the unknown not with the trembling hands of fear, but with the wide, unblinking eyes of scientific wonder. While his friends are often paralyzed by the trauma of what they have seen, he possesses an innate curiosity that overrides the instinct to flee. When he discovers a pulsating, slug-like creature in his trash can, his first reaction is not to recoil in disgust, but to lean in closer. He sees the anomaly not as a threat, but as a discovery, a biological puzzle waiting to be solved. This perspective is his superpower. In a world that is rapidly becoming a horror story, he's the only one still trying to write a science fiction adventure. This curiosity leads to the tragic, inevitable lesson of attempting to tame a wild thing. He names the creature Dart, placing it in a glass terrarium intended for a turtle, and feeds it nougat bars, projecting his own innocence onto a being that knows only hunger. It is a heartbreaking experiment in optimism, the belief that nurture can overcome nature. He wants to believe that a creature born of the shadow dimension can be redeemed through kindness and sugar. It mirrors the human desire to domesticate the dangerous, to bring the chaotic elements of the world into our homes and make them pets. But nature, especially nature from a world of rot, has its own rules. The tragedy lies in the realization that affection is not a universal language, and that some things are born to bite the hand that feeds them, no matter how gentle that hand may be. In a group that often resorts to shouting matches or emotional impulses, Dustin's intelligence serves as the grounding wire. He operates as the translator between the mystical and the rationale, using the metaphors of fantasy games to explain the physics of alternate dimensions. While the adults are baffled and the other children are reactive, he is the one checking the compass, consulting the library, and drawing the diagrams. His intellect is a weapon that doesn't run out of ammunition. He understands that to defeat the enemy, one must first understand its biology and its motives. This reliance on logic provides a necessary counterweight to the raw emotion of the group, proving that in a brute force world, the sharpest blade is often a well-read mind. This drive for understanding compels him to seek the high ground, quite literally. We see him hauling equipment up the steepest hill in town to construct a radio tower, a makeshift spire of aluminum and wire christened Cerebro. This structure is more than just a ham radio assembly. It is a physical manifestation of his desire to connect. While the town of Hawkins feels increasingly claustrophobic and isolated, he's reaching out to the static of the atmosphere, believing that there's a voice on the other end worth listening to. The radio tower stands as a beacon of hope, a silver needle stitching the small town to the wider world. It represents the refusal to accept that their current reality is all there is, and the faith that somewhere beyond the horizon, there is someone who speaks their language. Maintaining this level of optimism in a dire scenario is a form of bravery that often goes unrecognized. Dustin is the glue that keeps the party from fracturing under the weight of their collective trauma. He uses humor not as a deflection, but as a shield, diffusing tension with a well-timed joke or a toothless grin. This levity is crucial. Without it, the darkness would be suffocating. He reminds the group and the audience that even in the midst of a monster hunt, it is permitted and perhaps necessary to laugh. It is a defiance of the gloom, a declaration that fear will not be the only emotion allowed to sit at the table. Yet, there's a specific, quiet loneliness to being the smartest person in the room. To see the patterns that others miss and to have a girlfriend that no one believes exists is a solitary burden. He often finds himself walking slightly ahead or slightly behind the group, his mind working on a different frequency. We see the moments when his excitement is met with dismissal, or when his correct theories are ignored until it is too late. It is the plight of the visionary to be misunderstood by his peers. He must navigate the gap between his certainty and their skepticism, learning that being right is often less important than staying together. Seen in this light, his character arc is a triumph of self-acceptance. He wears his physical differences, his missing teeth and his collarbones, not as defects, but as features of his unique design. When he proudly displays his new pearls, the prosthetic teeth, it is a moment of profound growth. He is defining himself on his own terms, refusing to be the victim of his genetics or the punchline of a bully's joke. He teaches us that the things that make us strange are also the things that make us memorable. But even his optimism has limits, and as his pet monster grows too large for its cage, the reality of the danger becomes impossible to ignore. The party needs more than just intelligence now. They need a different kind of strength, the kind that can be found in the flashing lights of an arcade, where a new warrior is setting high scores and waiting to be challenged. Into the gray, quiet landscape of Hawkins rolls a new kind of traveler, one who moves not with the stealth of a spy or the wonder of a scientist, but with the guarded defiance of a survivor. Max Mayfield enters the story wearing a distinct piece of armor, a large pair of headphones that sit heavy over her ears. To the casual observer, this might look like a simple teenage habit, a way to enjoy music while moving from one place to another. But in the context of her life, these headphones are a fortress. They are a sonic barrier erected between her internal world and the chaotic, often hostile environment she is forced to inhabit. The music that flows through the wires is not just entertainment. It is a wall of sound that drowns out the arguments of parents and the aggressive roar of an engine she has come to dread. When she presses play, she is asserting control over her sensory experience. The world outside may be loud, angry, and unpredictable, but inside the space between the ear cups, she decides what she hears. It is a private rebellion, a way of carrying a sanctuary with her wherever she goes. Her refuge of choice is not a basement or a library, but the neon-lit cavern of the local arcade. Here, amidst the electronic chirping and the flashing screens, she finds a world that makes sense. Video games offer a fairness that real life does not. In the arcade, the rules are clear, the objectives are defined, and success is determined solely by skill and reaction time. It is a meritocracy where your background, your gender, or your family troubles do not matter. All that matters is how fast your hands can move and how long you can survive the pixelated onslaught. There's an intoxicating power in seeing one's name, or a chosen alias, sitting at the very top of the high score list. For a girl who feels powerless in her own home, moved across the country against her will, becoming the champion of the arcade is a reclamation of agency. It is a way to leave a mark, to prove that she was here and that she is better than the rest. The screen does not judge, it only challenges. When the coins run out and the screen goes dark, she steps onto her skateboard, transforming the asphalt of the town into her own personal wave. Skateboarding serves as her primary mechanism of flight. Unlike a bicycle, which feels mechanical and utilitarian, the skateboard is an extension of the body. It requires balance, grace, and a willingness to flirt with gravity. To ride is to surf the earth, to find flow in a stagnant environment. It allows her to move through the town with a speed and fluidity that separates her from the pedestrians plodding along the sidewalks. This act of riding is also a subtle form of control. On the board, she decides the speed and the direction. She can outpace the thoughts that chase her, feeling the wind rush past as a physical cleanser for her mood. The sound of the wheels on the pavement is a rhythmic, grinding hum that announces her arrival and her departure. However, even the lone warrior eventually crosses paths with the party. Max's integration into the group of boys illustrates the profound difficulty of entering an established circle of friends. The boys have a shared history, a language of inside jokes, and a traumatic bond that acts as a perimeter fence. To them, she is an invader, a variable that threatens to disrupt the delicate ecosystem of their friendship. We watch the awkward dance of inclusion and exclusion, the stalking from a distance, and the tentative exchanges of information. It captures the universal anxiety of the new kid, the feeling of standing on the outside, looking in at a warmth you are not sure you are allowed to share. She is met with skepticism, particularly from those who feel that her presence betrays the memory of the missing. It is a hard lesson in the protective nature of loyalty. She has to prove that she is worthy of trust, not by mimicking them, but by being undeniably herself. To survive the rejection and the turbulence of her home, she wears a mask of prickly sarcasm and toughness. Her anger is visible and sharp, a weapon she uses to keep people at a safe distance. But as we spend more time with her, we realize that this anger is merely a secondary emotion, a hard shell protecting a soft, bruised core of deep sadness. She is grieving the loss of her old life in California, the separation from her father, and the terror of her new living situation. It is safer to be mad than to be sad. Anger makes you feel strong. Sadness makes you feel vulnerable. We see glimpses of the cracks in this armor, a hesitation in her voice, a look of longing when she sees a happy family, or the way she flinches when a voice is raised. She pushes people away before they can leave her, a classic defense mechanism of the abandoned. In a group obsessed with fantasy, magic, and science, Max introduces a necessary dose of reality. She is not a mage or a paladin, she is the zoomer. She brings a street-smart pragmatism to a group of dreamers. While they are consulting rulebooks and building radios, she is picking locks and driving cars. She grounds the party, reminding them that they live in a physical world with physical consequences. Her role is to be the driver, both literally and metaphorically, propelling them forward when they get stuck in their heads. Her skepticism is healthy. She questions the impossible until it is proven true. This friction improves the group, forcing them to justify their beliefs and sharpen their plans. She represents the modern, fast-paced energy that contrasts with the nostalgic, slow-burn rhythm of the boys. Deep down, Max's story is about the search for a tribe. Her biological and legal family offers her no safety. In fact, it is the source of her greatest peril. She discovers that family is not defined by blood, but by choice. The boys, despite their initial resistance, become the sanctuary she cannot find at home. They offer her a seat at the table, a walkie-talkie, and a promise of backup. This found family chooses her for who she is, not because they are obligated to. This acceptance is the salve that begins to heal her wounds. Standing with them in the junkyard or the tunnels, she realizes she's no longer fighting alone. She has people who will stand between her and the darkness. But this newfound safety is fragile, for the darkness she runs from lives under her own roof. The greatest monster in her life is not from another dimension, but down the hall, an older brother whose rage is a force of nature, threatening to consume everything in its path. The roar of a blue Camaro engine tearing through the quiet streets signals the arrival of a different kind of monster, one made of flesh and blood. Billy Hargrove bursts into the narrative as a force of chaotic nature, a figure defined by speed, volume, and aggression. But his violence is not born from a vacuum. It is a dark inheritance passed down from father to son like a genetic disease. We witness the terrifying cycle of abuse in real time, the way a hand raised in anger at the dinner table eventually leads to a fist thrown in a parking lot. Billy is the living embodiment of the axiom that hurt people hurt others. He acts as a lightning rod for the toxicity of his home life, grounding that electrical charge into the unsuspecting earth of Hawkins. His rage is a desperate language, a way of screaming that he is in pain, without ever having to admit vulnerability. Beneath the denim and the bravado lies the tragedy of the bully who is also a victim. It is a complex duality that challenges our desire to simply label him as a villain. When we see him cowering before his father, stripped of his confidence and reduced to a frightened child, the context of his cruelty shifts. He dominates others because it is the only time he feels safe. In the hierarchy of his life, he must either be the hammer or the nail. He chooses to be the hammer, striking out at the world before it can strike him again. This does not excuse his actions, but it explains the mechanics of his soul. He is trapping others in lockers in fear because he is trapped in a life he cannot escape, frantically trying to rearrange the power dynamics to favor him for just one moment. His physical strength serves as a frantic compensation for his emotional powerlessness. He sculpts his body into a weapon, lifting weights and smoking cigarettes, with a performative masculinity that feels like armor. Every push-up and every fight is an attempt to build a fortress around a self-esteem that has been shattered. If he can just be strong enough, fast enough, and scary enough, perhaps the demons at home won't be able to hurt him. He wears his sexuality and his intimidation like a shield, daring anyone to come close enough to see the cracks. It is a tiring performance, a constant maintenance of an image that requires him to be harder than stone, denying him the basic human right to be soft or afraid. It is precisely this internal fracture that allows the true monster to find a foothold. When the shadow entity from the upside down seeks a host, it does not choose the happy or the whole, it chooses the broken. Billy's existing pain acts as a beacon, a hollowed out space where the darkness can nest. The possession is a metaphor for how trauma opens the door to self-destruction. The monster slides into the grooves carved by his father's abuse, using his rage as fuel. He becomes a passenger in his own body, a tragic realization of his lifelong fear that he has no control. The supernatural horror merely amplifies the psychological horror he has lived with for years, turning his internal rot into an external plague that threatens to consume the town. Amidst this darkness, we are given a brief, blinding glimpse of the light he lost. A memory surfaces of a day at the beach, of a younger Billy surfing the waves with his mother, bathed in the golden light of the California sun. The ocean represents a memory of peace, a time before the anger took root, when he was loved and free. This image stands in stark contrast to the gray decay of Hawkins and the red storm of the Mind Flayer. It reminds us that there was a boy before there was a beast. This fragment of happiness is the anchor that eventually pulls him back, if only for a second, proving that the capacity for love was buried, not destroyed. It is the tragedy of potential, the man he could have been if the world had been gentler. In the end, sacrifice becomes the only exit from a lifetime of control. Standing before the creature that has enslaved him, Billy makes the ultimate choice to reclaim his agency. He plants his feet and screams, not in anger, but in defiance. By stepping in front of the danger to protect the very children he tormented, he breaks the cycle. It is a moment of redemption bought with blood, a final assertion that he is not his father and he is not the monster. He dies as himself, a free man for the first time in his life. It is a sorrowful conclusion, acknowledging that sometimes the only way to kill the darkness is to let it destroy you while you hold it back from those you love. His story serves as a grim warning of how unaddressed trauma consumes everything in its path. Like a wildfire, it burns through the host and then jumps to the nearest timber. But even as the smoke clears and the body is laid to rest, the battle is far from over. The party remains, battered and bruised, standing in the wreckage of the mall. They have survived the brute force of the wave, but now they must face the cold calculation of the aftermath. It is a time for cool heads and rational thought, a time for the skepticism and strategic mind of the one member who has always dared to question the impossible, armed with nothing but a wrist rocket and the courage to stand his ground. In every council of dreamers, there must be one voice that demands to see the ground beneath their feet. Lucas Sinclair embodies this role of the pragmatist, offering the courage of skepticism in a group prone to flights of fancy. While his friends are quick to accept the existence of telekinetic girls and alternate dimensions, Lucas requires evidence. He is the anchor that prevents the balloon of their imagination from floating away into dangerous stratospheres. This skepticism is often mistaken for hostility, but in truth, it is the ultimate form of care. He questions the unknown, not because he lacks imagination, but because he understands that in the real world, the unknown is usually dangerous. He is the ranger who checks the perimeter, the one who refuses to walk blindly into the dark without first understanding what might be waiting there. His loyalty is fierce, but it is tested by the introduction of the unknown elements that threaten to destabilize his circle. When 11 arrives, he is the only one who sees her not as a marvel, but as a risk. This friction is essential to the group's survival. It reminds us that blind trust is a luxury that cannot be afforded in times of crisis. Lucas stands as the guardian of the original pact, the one who remembers that friends don't lie was a rule created to protect them from the outside world, not just a slogan. His resistance forces the group to prove the worth of the newcomer, ensuring that when acceptance finally comes, it has been earned rather than freely given. It is a lesson in the necessity of boundaries, teaching us that an open door lets in the cold just as easily as it lets in the light. In his hands, a simple toy becomes a symbol of facing giants with pebbles. The wrist rocket, a slingshot made of wood and elastic, is a ludicrous weapon against a monster from another dimension. Yet Lucas wields it with the seriousness of a soldier holding a rifle. This imagery captures the essence of the show's conflict, the small and the organic standing against the massive and the unnatural. The slingshot requires precision, patience, and a steady hand, traits that define Lucas's character. He does not have superpowers, he has aim. It represents the idea that we must fight with whatever we have at hand, that courage is not about having the best weapon, but about standing your ground when all you have is a stone and a rubber band. Amidst the chaos of psychic battles and government conspiracies, Lucas provides the necessity of rational thought. He is the one asking about supplies, about logistics, and about the exit strategy. When the world turns upside down, the need for logic increases, not decreases. He grounds the supernatural events in tactical reality. While others are paralyzed by the spectacle of the horror, he's calculating the distance between the monster and the door. This pragmatic approach saves them time and time again. It teaches us that while heart and spirit are vital, they must be guided by a mind that can see the mechanics of the situation. He is the architect of their survival plans, the one who translates the impossible into a series of actionable steps. However, his greatest moment of strength comes not in battle, but in the quiet aftermath of conflict. We witness the profound power of apologizing when he realizes he was wrong about 11. To admit error is difficult for anyone, but for a young man driven by logic and pride, it is a supreme act of strength. He looks the stranger in the eye and offers his hand, bridging the chasm his skepticism created. This moment of reconciliation reveals that a rigid mind can still be flexible enough to change when presented with new data. It elevates him from a stubborn obstacle to a mature leader. It suggests that true wisdom lies in knowing when to stand firm and when to yield to the truth, even if that truth contradicts your initial assessment. As the years pass and the group dynamics shift, Lucas continues to demonstrate the ability to stand his ground, even when the rest of the party drifts. He navigates the treacherous waters of high school popularity without losing his soul, trying to bridge the gap between the cool crowd and his nerdier roots. He endures the accusations of betrayal because he is trying to find a path that accommodates both growth and loyalty. It is a lonely position, standing in the middle of two warring factions, but he holds the line. He shows us that growing up often involves walking a solitary path for a while, and that one does not have to burn bridges to build new ones. Finally, his journey is defined by love found in the trenches of shared combat. His relationship with Max is forged not in the safety of a movie theater, but in the adrenaline of the junkyard and the terror of the Creel house. They are partners who have watched each other's backs when the world was ending. This shared trauma creates a bond that is deeper than typical teenage romance. He becomes her spotter, her anchor, the one who calls her back from the darkness with the sound of his voice. He learns that loving someone means standing guard while they fight their demons, holding the line so they can find their way home. But as the mysteries of Hawkins deepen, even the sharpest teenage mind reaches its limit. To understand the true depth of the conspiracy, they will need to leave the town behind and seek out a man who lives in a bunker, a recluse who has turned paranoia into an art form and prefers the company of vodka to people. Far beyond the paved roads and the orderly subdivisions of the town, we venture deep into the wilderness to find a fortress of intellect and suspicion. Here lives Murray Bauman, a former journalist who has retreated from a society he no longer trusts, existing in a self-imposed exile that feels less like a prison and more like a vantage point. In a world that is constantly trying to gaslight its citizens, Murray represents the wisdom of paranoia, a state of mind that questions every official narrative. To the average person, he appears manic and unhinged, a man shouting at the wind about Russian spies and alien invasions. But in the context of Hawkins, his madness is actually a higher form of sanity, a necessary adaptation to an environment filled with secrets. He has correctly identified that the surface of the world is a lie, and he has dedicated his life to digging beneath it to find the rotting machinery that makes it turn. Inside his bunker, the atmosphere is a carefully curated blend of chaos and culture, where the air is thick with the smell of cheap spirits and the complex, frantic rhythms of jazz music. For Murray, vodka and jazz are not merely vices or hobbies. They are essential tools for maintaining clarity in a confusing world. The alcohol dulls the sharp edges of his anxiety, while the music matches the frenetic pace of his thoughts, allowing him to think in nonlinear patterns that others cannot follow. This solitude is his sanctuary, a place where he can strip away the noise of people and their petty deceptions to see the raw data of reality. He sits in his armchair like a king in exile, surrounded by stacks of paper and recording equipment, believing that the truth can only be found when one is alone enough to hear it. Paradoxically, this recluse who shuns human contact possesses a terrifyingly accurate understanding of human emotion that often leaves his guests exposed. He is the outsider who sees the emotional truth between people with laser-like precision, cutting through the polite denials that define social interaction. When visitors enter his orbit, he dissects their relationships with uncomfortable bluntness, acting as a mirror that forces them to acknowledge the feelings they are desperate to hide. Because he has no stake in the social game, he ignores the polite fictions of friendship and sees the biological reality of attraction. It suggests that sometimes you need to step entirely out of the river of humanity to see which way the current is actually flowing, identifying love and tension where the participants only see confusion. Murray's walls are covered in maps, newspaper clippings, and a tangled web of red string connecting disparate events into a single cohesive narrative. This visual representation of his mind illustrates how conspiracy theories function as a desperate way to order a chaotic and indifferent world. To believe that everything is random is terrifying. To believe that a secret organization is controlling everything is, in a strange way, comforting because it implies a plan. His obsession with connecting the dots is a search for meaning, a way to prove that the tragedies of the world are not accidents, but the results of deliberate actions. It is a frantic attempt to impose a narrative structure on a reality that often feels senseless, turning the static of history into a clear signal. In the heat of the crisis, we witness the formation of an unlikely friendship between the hermit and the sheriff, two men who are opposites in almost every way. Hopper and Murray are polar forces. One is the embodiment of law and brute force, while the other represents anarchy and intellectual skepticism. Yet they bond over a shared cynicism and a mutual understanding that the world is broken and needs to be fixed. Their interactions are filled with shouting matches and insults, a friction that generates both heat and necessary light in the darkness of the investigation. Murray provides the information, and Hopper provides the fist, creating a symbiotic relationship that proves that in a war against monsters, the cranky intellectual and the weary soldier make for a formidable team. Murray navigates this terrifying landscape with a shield of manic humor, laughing when any rational person would be screaming in terror. This humor is a defense mechanism, a psychological way to reduce the scale of the horror so that it can be processed without breaking his mind. By turning the end of the world into a joke, he takes away some of its power, mocking the Russian assassins and the government agents until they seem like caricatures rather than threats. This bravado protects his psyche from snapping under the weight of what he knows. It teaches us that sometimes the only way to stare into the abyss without blinking is to make fun of it, using laughter as a defiant bark in the face of doom. In the grand scheme, Murray plays a crucial role in translating the nightmare for the masses, understanding that the public cannot handle the full, unvarnished truth. If they were told about interdimensional gates and shadow monsters, society would collapse under the weight of the panic. So he becomes the architect of the palatable lie, helping to craft stories about chemical leaks and fires that water down the truth into a version the average citizen can swallow. It is a cynical but necessary act of mercy, realizing that the role of the truth teller is sometimes to craft the perfect fiction. But while Murray hides in his bunker to stay safe, another man, one with no combat training and a heart full of puzzles, is about to step out of the safety of the background and into the line of fire, proving that you don't need to be paranoid to be a hero. Into a narrative dominated by brooding sheriffs, telekinetic children, and government conspiracies, walks a man who seems to have wandered in from a sitcom. Bob Newby enters the story not as a warrior, but as the antithesis of the dark heroes we have grown accustomed to watching. He is a man of dad jokes, retail management, and an earnest, unshakable optimism that feels almost out of place in the gray landscape of Hawkins. He represents the heroism of the ordinary citizen, the kind of person who believes in the rules and the fundamental goodness of systems. He does not wear armor or carry a badge. His uniform is a beige jacket and a name tag, yet his quiet courage proves to be no less significant than the loudest explosion. In the cynical, shadowed world of the town, his kindness feels like a radical act of rebellion against the gloom. He offers a specific brand of gentle affection that demands nothing in return, a sharp contrast to the transactional and conditional relationships found elsewhere. He is the safe choice, the stabilizer for a family that has been spinning out of control for years. To choose kindness when the world is falling apart is a form of strength that is often overlooked by those seeking drama. He brings movie rentals and sandwiches to a war zone, trying to bandage the psychic wounds of the Byers family with the simple comfort of the mundane. We soon learn that his love for brain teasers and puzzles is not merely a quirky hobby, but a form of training for survival. While others practice shooting or fighting, Bob practiced thinking, viewing the world as a series of logical problems that can be solved if one looks at the data correctly. This intellectual curiosity allows him to decipher the frantic scribblings of a possessed boy when no one else can see the pattern. It suggests that in a crisis, the ability to see the map is just as valuable as the ability to throw a punch. His mind is a tool that has been sharpened by years of curiosity, ready to unlock doors that brute force cannot budge. When the walls of the laboratory close in and the monsters are scratching at the doors, it is this ordinary man who steps forward. The tragedy of his character lies in the fact that he was the safe option who ended up in the most dangerous position imaginable. He volunteers for a mission not because he has a death wish, but because the people he loves are in danger and he knows he has the skills to save them. He leaves the gun behind, armed only with his knowledge of computer languages and the layout of the building. It is a powerful image. A man fighting a supernatural army with nothing but his mind, his keys, and a brave heart. His journey highlights how boring stability is often exactly what is most needed to survive the chaos of life. We often romanticize the rugged, damaged hero, but Bob shows us the immense value of the steady hand and the calm voice. He is the human equivalent of a warm hearth in a winter storm, a source of heat and light that keeps the cold at bay. He does not add to the drama, he absorbs it, offering a foundation upon which others can stand and catch their breath. His normalcy is a tether to the real world, reminding Joyce and her sons that life is supposed to be about movie nights and dinners, not just running for your life in the dark. The conclusion of his story is one of the most painful moments in the town's history, a stark reminder of the stakes. He succeeds in his mission, restoring power and opening the doors to freedom, only to be taken at the very threshold of safety. It is a cruel lesson that being a good man does not grant you immunity from a bad situation. His death leaves a void that cannot be filled by muscle or magic, marking the loss of innocence for the adults just as much as the children. He dies as he lived, solving the problem so that others could go on living, a superhero who never needed a mask to save the day. His legacy fades into the background as the town tries to move on, burying the trauma under layers of neon and commerce. The silence he left behind is soon filled by the bustling noise of a new temple of consumption rising on the edge of town. This bright, sprawling structure promises to distract everyone from the monsters they buried, signaling that the summer of childhood is ending and the age of the mall has begun, where the lights are brighter, the crowds are louder, and the shadows are harder to spot. As the seasons turn and the gray skies of autumn give way to the sweltering heat of July, the landscape of Hawkins is dominated by a new gleaming monolith. The Starcourt Mall rises from the earth like a temple dedicated to the changing times, a cathedral of commerce, built to bury the quiet trauma of the past. It stands as a vibrant, neon-soaked testament to the era's obsession with the new, drawing the townspeople away from the decaying downtown and into its air-conditioned embrace. This structure is more than just a collection of stores. It is a fortress of distraction, offering a sensory overload of bright colors and synthesized music designed to make everyone forget the monsters that live beneath their feet. The mall represents the collective desire to move on, to pave over the scars of the earth with polished tile and bright signage. Inside this consumerist utopia, the lighting is artificial and relentless, masking the darkness that usually defines the town's narrative. The flickering bulbs of the buyer's home are replaced by the steady, sterile hum of fluorescent tubes that banish all shadows. Here, happiness can be purchased in the form of clothing, movies, and sugar, providing a temporary dopamine hit that numbs the growing pains of a community in transition. It is a saccharine facade, a bright and loud cover-up for a town that is still bleeding internally. The relentless cheerfulness of the mall serves as a stark contrast to the grim reality we know is lurking just out of frame, creating a tension between the surface-level joy and the subterranean dread. For the party, the mall serves as the backdrop for the shifting dynamics of adolescence. The basement, once the center of their universe, now sits empty and quiet, replaced by the chaotic energy of the food court. The intimacy of Dungeons and Dragons is traded for the public performance of dating and social posturing. We witness the natural, albeit painful, fracturing of the group as romantic interests begin to pull them in different directions. The unity that saved them from the Demogorgon is tested by the much more mundane forces of puberty and hormones. It is a universal tragedy of growing up, the realization that the things that once bound you together are no longer strong enough to hold the group tight against the expanding world. Amidst the crowds and the commerce, we find the former king of the high school humbled by the realities of the working world. Steve Harrington, once the symbol of cool, now scoops ice cream in a sailor suit, hidden away in the back corner of the food court. This degradation is essential for his continued growth, stripping away the last vestiges of his vanity. The job at Scoops Ahoy offers a lesson in humility, forcing him to serve the very people he used to look down upon. Yet within the confines of this sticky, sugar-scented counter, he finds a new kind of connection, not with a sycophantic follower, but with a peer who challenges him. It serves as a reminder that sometimes we find our truest selves when we are forced to wear a ridiculous uniform and do the work no one else wants to do. There's a bittersweet quality to this summer, a sense that it is the final threshold before true maturity sets in. The bright colors of the season feel like a last hurrah, a desperate attempt to hold on to the freedom of childhood before the responsibilities of the adult world crash down. We feel the fleeting nature of these days, the way that ice cream melts too fast and the sun sets too soon. The characters are clinging to a moment in time that is already slipping through their fingers, trying to live in an endless montage of fun while the clock ticks down. It captures the specific melancholy of realizing that things will never be exactly this way again, and that the good old days are ending right now in real time. However, the bright lights of Starcourt are not just there to sell products. They are there to blind the town to what is happening underground. The noise of the arcade in the cinema provides the perfect cover for the mechanical hum of a new threat gathering strength deep beneath the foundation. The mall is a Trojan horse, a beautiful distraction that allows the enemy to build a stronghold right in the center of civilization. As the shoppers laugh and eat, unaware of the danger, the story prepares to introduce a man who knows exactly what is happening below. A scientist from a faraway land who finds himself caught in the gears of a machine he helped build, armed with nothing but a thirst for cherry slushies and a desire to defect. In the backseat of a stolen convertible, flanked by a paranoid conspiracy theorist and a weary police chief, sits a man who defies the archetypes of the Cold War. Alexei, a scientist plucked from the subterranean depths of the secret laboratory, is not the stoic, iron-jawed villain one might expect from the movies. Instead, he presents us with a portrait of disarming innocence, a man who seems to have bypassed the cynicism of adulthood entirely. He views the surface world not with the calculated gaze of a spy, but with the wide-eyed wonder of a child entering a candy store for the first time. His presence in the story serves to deconstruct the monolithic image of the enemy, revealing that beneath the geopolitical uniforms and the ideologies, there are often just people who are frightened, curious, and looking for a way out of the machine that employs them. His integration into American culture begins not with a briefing or a debriefing, but with a plastic cup filled with frozen, sugary syrup. The cherry slushie becomes the unlikely symbol of his personal liberation, a bright red beacon of the American dream. To Alexei, this beverage is not merely a drink, it is a revelation of choice. In his previous life, options were limited and gray, but here he is presented with a spectrum of flavors, and he exercises his newfound agency by demanding the specific taste he desires. The debate between cherry and strawberry is treated with the gravity of a diplomatic negotiation, illustrating that freedom often manifests in the smallest, most trivial decisions. It is a humorous yet profound assertion of selfhood. He refuses to settle for the generic option, insisting on the specific joy he believes he has earned. Communication with Alexei requires a bridge built over a vast linguistic chasm. He speaks a language his captors do not understand, necessitating the intervention of the only man in the state paranoid enough to have learned Russian. Through this translation process, we witness the slow, deliberate building of trust. It is a connection forged in the back of a car in the safety of a bunker, relying on tone, gesture, and the universal language of shared danger. As the barriers break down, the scary scientist dissolves, replaced by a man who laughs at cartoons and enjoys the simple absurdity of the situation. We begin to see him not as a functionary of a hostile state, but as a human being who has been caught in the gears of history, a person with dreams and a sense of humor that transcends borders. This journey culminates in the sensory explosion of the 4th of July fairground. For Alexei, this is the promised land, a kaleidoscope of neon lights, the smell of fried dough, and the joyous screams of riders on the midway. It is the physical manifestation of the freedom he has been chasing. He walks through the crowd with a giant stuffed prize under his arm, a trophy of his skill at the carnival games, wearing a smile that is heartbreaking in its purity. In this moment, the spy thriller transforms into a tragedy. The fairground, with its loud noises and chaotic movement, provides the perfect, cruel cover for violence. It represents the height of life and vitality, making it the most devastating setting for the sudden intrusion of death. The end comes not with a bang, but with a whisper, silenced by the noise of the celebration. The innocence of the man with the slushie is extinguished by the cold professionalism of an assassin who moves like a shadow through the festive crowd. It is a jarring reminder of the fragility of life amidst the clash of superpowers. One moment, there's a man enjoying the greatest night of his life, believing he has finally found safety. The next, he is gone, slumped against a fence while the world keeps spinning and laughing around him. The tragedy lies in the potential that was cut short, the life he could have had, the flavors he could have tasted, and the cartoons he could have watched. His death humanizes the conflict in a way that maps and explosions never could. We do not mourn a soldier, we mourn a man who just wanted to enjoy the fair. It strips away the politics to reveal the cost of these shadow wars, the individual lives that are used as currency and discarded when they are no longer useful. Alexei leaves the story as a ghost of what might have been, a reminder that in the game of spies and monsters, the ones with the biggest hearts are often the first to fall. But as the lights of the fairground blur and the sounds of the fireworks fade into the distance, a new rhythmic sound begins to emerge from the darkness, a slow, ominous ticking that signals the arrival of a horror, far more personal and psychological than any army, a villain who weaponizes the very guilt and shame we try to hide. From the shadows of the Upside Down, a new and distinct form of terror emerges, one that does not rely on the brute force of a demolition crew, but on the surgical precision of a psychological predator. Vecna represents the weaponization of guilt and shame, moving beyond the physical destruction of the previous threats to target the fragile architecture of the human mind. Unlike the animalistic hunger of the Demogorgon or the hive mind storm of the Mind Flayer, this villain operates with a terrifying intimacy, seeking out the specific, hidden wounds of his victims. He acts as a dark reflection of therapy, excavating the trauma that teenagers like Max have buried deep within themselves. He understands that the most devastating prisons are not built of bars, but of the secrets we keep and the regrets that keep us awake at night. The arrival of this threat is heralded by a sound that chills the blood, the heavy, rhythmic tolling of a grandfather clock. This object, usually a symbol of domestic stability and the passage of time, is transformed into a harbinger of doom. For the victim, the clock appears in hallucinations, standing in school hallways or embedded in trees, its hands ticking down the final moments of their life. It serves as a grim reminder that the past is never truly gone. It is always waiting to collect its debt. The ticking is not merely a countdown to death, but a signal that the time for hiding is over. It suggests that our unresolved history is a stalking horse, slowly closing the distance until we are forced to turn and look at what we have done. Crucially, this antagonist operates under a twisted delusion of mercy. He does not believe he is murdering these children. He believes he's saving them from the suffering of a cruel world. He targets the broken, the lonely, and the grieving, whispering to them that their pain is a cage from which he offers the only key. This distorted philosophy makes him arguably the most dangerous monster the town has faced, for he validates the darkest thoughts of his victims. He tells them that their suffering makes them weak and that the peace of the void is better than the struggle of existence. It is a seduction of the soul, a promise to end the pain by ending the capacity to feel anything at all. When the clock chimes for the 4th time, the victim retreats into the mind to escape the physical world, leaving their body in a trance-like state while their consciousness is pulled into a red, fragmented nightmare. This mind layer is a landscape constructed from the debris of bad memories, a literal manifestation of dissociation. Here, the victim is isolated from their friends and their reality, trapped in a loop of their worst moments. It is a terrifying visual metaphor for depression and trauma, illustrating how we can become lost in the labyrinth of our own heads. The body may be present in the room, but the person is miles away, wandering through a fog where the monsters of the past are given flesh and blood. This predatory cycle highlights the profound psychological toll of hiding secrets from loved ones. Max, in her grief over her brother, has pushed everyone away, breaking the connections that once kept her safe. She stops talking to her friends, she breaks up with her boyfriend, and she retreats behind her headphones. This isolation is the cracks in the armor that Vecna exploits. He finds a foothold in the silence between people. The story illustrates that secrets are heavy. They weigh us down and make us slow, making us easy prey for the darkness. By believing she deserves to suffer for her brother's death, she unknowingly invites the executioner into her life. However, in the depths of this psychological abyss, a lifeline is discovered in the form of music. We learn that melody and rhythm have the power to reach parts of the brain that fear cannot touch. When Max's favorite song is played, it acts as an anchor, a silver cord that pulls her back from the edge of oblivion. Music is shown to be more than just entertainment. It is a fundamental connection to our identity and our happiest memories. It cuts through the fog of the nightmare, reminding the victim of who they are outside of their trauma. It creates a bridge between the dark world of the mind and the light of reality, proving that art has the capacity to save our lives quite literally. The climax of this struggle is one of the most triumphant moments of the entire saga. We watch as Max, realizing she is not ready to die, turns her back on the monster and sprints toward the portal where her friends are waiting. She is running up the hill toward life, not away from it. It is an active, desperate choice to survive, rejecting the seduction of the void. She runs through the falling debris of her own mind, fueled by the memories of laughter, friendship, and love. It is a powerful declaration that while the past shapes us, it does not have to consume us. She breaks the curse not by fighting the monster with fists, but by choosing to return to the people who love her. But while she finds her way back to the light, another outcast, one who usually hides behind a guitar and a shield of cynicism, is preparing to face his own trial, where he will learn that sometimes running away is no longer an option. Into the narrative steps a figure clad in denim and leather, a character who embodies the frantic, misunderstood energy of the outcast. Eddie Munson is not the polished, popular hero that the high school ecosystem usually produces. He is the freak, the metalhead, the pariah who sits at the back of the cafeteria and laughs too loudly at the absurdity of the social hierarchy. To the polite society of Hawkins, he's a figure of suspicion, a symbol of rebellion that must be stamped out. But to those who know him, his abrasive exterior is merely a shield, a performance of intimidation designed to protect a heart that is surprisingly gentle. He represents the courage of the coward, the person who is terrified of everything yet chooses to stand up when the world begins to burn. For Eddie, the game of Dungeons and Dragons is not just a fantasy, it is a sanctuary. As the leader of the Hellfire Club, he creates a haven for the misunderstood, a space where the kids who don't fit in can feel like kings and wizards. In the basement or the drama room, the labels of loser or freak are stripped away, replaced by titles of power and respect. This club is a family for the orphans of the social system. Eddie understands that fantasy is often the only way for the marginalized to process the cruelty of reality. He shepherds the younger generation, like Dustin and Mike, not just as a dungeon master, but as an older brother figure who teaches them that it is okay to be different, and that their weirdness is actually their greatest strength. However, the story uses Eddie to explore the terrifying speed with which society persecutes those who do not conform. When the killings begin, the town does not look for a supernatural explanation. They look for a scapegoat. Eddie, with his loud music and his devil horn gestures, fits the costume of the villain perfectly in their eyes. We witness the Satanic Panic come to life, a mob mentality that demonizes what it does not understand. He becomes the face of the town's fear, hunted not because of what he did, but because of how he looks. It is a tragedy of prejudice, illustrating how easily a community can turn on its own children when fear takes the wheel. He's forced to run, hiding in boathouses and forests, a fugitive in the very town he calls home. This flight sets up the central conflict of his soul, the struggle between running away and standing to fight. Throughout his life, Eddie's instinct has been self-preservation. He runs from confrontation, he runs from responsibility, and when the horror first reveals itself, he runs from the room. He carries the weight of this perceived cowardice like a stone. He looks at Steve, Nancy, and Robin, people who dive headfirst into danger, and he sees something in them that he believes he lacks. His journey is one of finding the point where he stops retreating, the line in the sand where the desire to protect his friends outweighs the instinct to save himself. The climax of his arc is one of the most visceral and electric moments in the history of the town. Standing atop a trailer, in the alternate dimension, surrounded by red lightning and swarming bats, Eddie picks up his guitar. He does not wield a gun or a sword. He wields the power of sound. The guitar solo becomes a weapon of mass distraction, a sonic scream that draws the darkness away from his friends. It is the ultimate validation of his identity. The very music that the town labeled as devil worship becomes the tool that saves them. He shreds through the silence of the Upside Down, a metal concert for an audience of monsters, turning his art into an act of defiance. It is a declaration that he is here, he is loud, and he is not afraid. But the true heroism is found in the quiet decision that follows the noise. When the bats descend and the path to safety is open, Eddie chooses to stay. He realizes that buying time is more important than saving his own skin. He cuts the rope, severing his escape route, and turns to face the swarm alone. In his final moments, fighting with a spear and a shield made of trash can lids, he rewrites his own history. He dies not as the boy who ran away, but as the warrior who held the gate. His last words, whispered through blood and tears, "I didn't run this time," serve as a final epitaph for a life spent fleeing. It is the heartbreaking completion of his redemption, a promise kept to himself that he could be brave. The tragedy of Eddie Munson is that he dies a hero, yet the town will never know. To the people of Hawkins, he remains a villain, a murderer, a cult leader. His name is dragged through the mud even as his body lies cold in a dimension they don't believe exists. Only the few who were there know the truth, that the freak was the bravest of them all. His legacy is carried in the hearts of the friends he saved, particularly the boy with the cap who watched him die. But as the grief settles over the survivors, the narrative shifts to the men who created this mess in the first place. The scientists and the doctors who operate in the gray moral space between control and care, and the struggle of a daughter to finally break free from the shadow of the man who calls himself Papa. In the sterile, fluorescent-lit corridors of scientific pursuit, we encounter a profound duality of fatherhood represented by two men in white coats, Dr. Martin Brenner and Dr. Sam Owens. These two figures stand as pillars at opposite ends of a moral spectrum, defining the chasm between control and care. Brenner, known chillingly as Papa, embodies the cold, clinical ambition of science that has lost its tether to humanity. To him, a child is not a being to be nurtured, but a variable to be solved, a raw material to be refined into a weapon. His approach to parenting is indistinguishable from programming a machine. He seeks specific outputs and views emotional independence as a malfunction. In contrast, Dr. Owens represents the bureaucracy trying to rediscover its heart. He is the pragmatist who realizes that the damage has been done and seeks to mitigate the fallout, understanding that safety is more important than progress. The relationship between Eleven and Brenner is a masterclass in the toxicity of conditional love and manipulation. He offers affection, but it is always transactional, a currency exchanged for obedience and performance. When she succeeds in a test, she is rewarded with a gentle touch or a soft word. When she fails, she is met with a cold vacuum of isolation. This dynamic creates a confusing, desperate cycle for the child, who learns to equate love with utility. It is a psychological cage far stronger than any steel bars, for it binds the captive with their own desire for approval. Brenner gaslights his subjects into believing that the outside world is the enemy, and that he alone is their sanctuary, a classic tactic of the abuser who seeks to become the entire universe for their victim. This narrative thread explores the terrifying consequences of science without ethics. In the laboratory, we see what happens when the pursuit of knowledge supersedes the sanctity of life. The Rainbow Room, with its painted rainbow and childish games, is a grotesque pantomime of childhood, a sterile womb designed not to birth happy children, but to incubate monsters. Here, pain is a teaching tool, and trauma is the fuel used to ignite psychic abilities. It serves as a grim warning that intelligence without empathy creates a specific kind of darkness, one where human beings are reduced to data points and the suffering of a child is justified by the potential for geopolitical power. However, the story also highlights the difficult, often violent struggle to break free from the parent figure who made you. Eleven's journey back to the laboratory is not a regression, but a necessary confrontation. To move forward, she must return to the source of her pain and look it in the eye. She has to dismantle the internal voice of Papa that tells her she's weak or broken. We watch as she sifts through the wreckage of her memories, separating the truth of who she is from the lies she was told. It is the painful process of unlearning the lessons of a toxic upbringing, realizing that her power does not belong to the government or the scientists, but to herself. Dr. Owen stands as the counterweight to this darkness, representing the possibility of redemption within a broken system. He's not perfect, he's a man of secrets and compromises, but his motivation is fundamentally different. He gives Eleven a birth certificate, not a mission. He facilitates her life as a normal teenager, understanding that she deserves the chance to be Jane, not just the superhero. His laboratory in the desert is built to restore her, not to control her. He defends her humanity against the military forces that see her only as a threat or an asset. Owens illustrates that it is possible to work within the machine while still trying to save the people crushed by its gears. The climax of this dynamic takes place in the dust of the desert, where the laboratory becomes a battleground. As the military descends and the walls are breached, we see the final divergence of the two fathers. Brenner, in his last moments, clings to his creation, placing a collar around her neck in a desperate attempt to keep her. He cannot let go, for his identity is entirely wrapped up in his control over her. He believes, until his final breath, that he did what was best, a delusion that protects him from the weight of his sins. He dies seeking absolution, asking for a forgiveness that he feels he is owed for his protection. But the most powerful moment comes in the silence of the aftermath, in the refusal of that forgiveness. Eleven looks at the dying man who shaped her existence and chooses not to grant him the peace he seeks. She acknowledges him as her creator, but she denies him the role of her father. It is a harsh, necessary act of severance. She leaves him in the dust of the desert, realizing that she does not owe him her soul. It is the final step of her maturation, the understanding that we are not bound to forgive those who hurt us, especially when their love was a trap. As the helicopter rises, lifting her away from the burning wreckage of her past, she leaves the desert behind. But she is now faced with a different kind of separation. The vast physical geography that now stretches between her and the people she loves. A distance that radio, waves, and letters can only barely bridge. The story now shifts its focus from the immediate terror of monsters to the quiet, aching geography of separation. We return to the image of the moving van, a vehicle that represents the physical tearing of the soul. When the Byers family and Eleven packed their lives into boxes and drove away from Hawkins, they didn't just leave a town, they fractured the collective heart of the group. We watch the tail lights fade into the distance, leaving behind a silence that is louder than any scream from the Upside Down. This departure marks the end of an era, a visual confirmation that the childhood safety of proximity, of being a bike ride away from your best friend, is gone forever. The road stretches out like a scar, separating the characters not by dimensions, but by hundreds of miles of asphalt and cornfields. In this new reality, technology becomes the lifeline. We see the desperate construction of Cerebro, the amateur radio tower, and the tangled wires of ham radios in bedrooms. These devices are no longer just toys for playing spy. They are the only threads holding the tapestry of their relationships together. There's a specific desperation in the act of tuning a radio, turning the dial with micrometer precision to find the voice of the person you love, amidst the static of the universe. It is a metaphor for the effort required to maintain a connection when the physical world has put obstacles in your path. The static represents the noise of new lives, new schools, and new friends, constantly threatening to drown out the signal of the past. To bridge this gap, the characters turn to the slow, deliberate art of letter writing. In an age before instant messaging, the letter is a sacred object. It requires time to write, a stamp to send, and days of waiting to receive. This delay adds a weight to every word. We hear the narration of these letters, particularly from Eleven to Mike, revealing a heartbreaking disparity between the written word and reality. She writes of parties, friends, and happiness, painting a picture of a California dream that does not exist. It illustrates how distance allows us to curate our lives, to hide our suffering to protect the people we love, or perhaps to protect our own pride. The letter becomes a mask, a piece of paper that smiles even when the writer is crying. This separation forces us to confront the painful, natural process of growing apart. When the characters finally reunite, the rhythm is off. The jokes land differently. The hugs are slightly awkward. The California sun has baked a different version of reality into Eleven and Will, while the gray skies of Hawkins have kept Mike and Dustin in a different stasis. We witness the friction of misalignment, the realization that you cannot simply press pause on a relationship and expect it to resume exactly where it left off. People grow in the empty spaces between visits, and sometimes they grow in different directions. It is the melancholy truth of adolescence, that the tightest knots can be loosened simply by time and distance. The visual language of the story emphasizes this contrast. California is presented in blindingly bright colors, bathed in a relentless golden sunlight that feels almost artificial. It is a world of roller rinks, surfboards, and neon, a stark juxtaposition to the muted autumnal palette of Indiana. This brightness serves to highlight the isolation of the characters who have moved there. Eleven and Will look like transplants, unrooted and squinting in the glare. The sunshine does not bring warmth, it brings exposure. In Hawkins, the darkness allowed them to hide. In California, there are no shadows to conceal the bullying or the loneliness. The setting itself becomes an antagonist, a reminder that they are strangers in a strange land. Yet despite the silence of the radio and the miles on the map, there is a stubborn refusal to let go. We see the characters holding on to the frequency of the person they miss, wearing their old shirts or looking at photographs taped to walls. It is a testament to the endurance of shared history. The bond formed in the trenches of the Upside Down is not easily broken by state lines. They're tuning their hearts to the same channel, waiting for a sign. It suggests that love is not just about proximity, it is about the willingness to keep listening for a signal, even when the airwaves seem empty. This experience teaches us that while physical separation is painful, it clarifies what matters. The distance strips away the convenience of friendship and leaves only the intentionality. You have to choose to keep in touch, you have to work for it. And as the vans keep driving and the days keep passing, the characters realize that no matter how far they go, the compass needle of their lives still points back to the small, cursed town in Indiana. They are pulled back not by gravity, but by the unfinished business of growing up, and the realization that the gate they thought they closed is not as sealed as they hoped. The final journey is about to begin, and it will require them to close the distance once and for all. For the door at the end of the world is standing ajar, and the cold wind is starting to blow again. As the dust settles over the town of Hawkins, and the sirens finally fade into silence, we are left with the profound realization that safety is always a temporary state. The ending of the battle does not bring a return to the perfect, untouched innocence of the beginning. Instead, we learn that peace is merely the quiet space between storms, a breath taken before the next wave crashes against the shore. The story teaches us that the concept of happily ever after is a fairy tale invention that has no place in the messy reality of growing up. We do not defeat our demons once and for all. We simply push them back into the shadows for a while. The victory is found not in the permanent eradication of danger, but in the resilience required to keep standing when the ground beneath our feet begins to shake again. The landscape of the town now bears the physical evidence of the war that was waged in secret. The earth is fractured, split by fissures that glow with a faint, ominous light, serving as a permanent reminder of the violence that occurred. These scars on the geography mirror the scars carried by the people. The characters who walk these streets are no longer the children playing board games in a basement. They are veterans of a psychic war. They walk with a different gait, carrying the weight of what they have seen and what they have lost. The story illustrates that we do not heal back to exactly who we were before the trauma. We heal into someone new, someone tougher, and perhaps a little sadder, but infinitely more real. The scars are not signs of defect, but maps of survival, proof that they faced the darkness and refused to blink. Living with this knowledge requires a specific kind of bravery. Once the veil has been lifted, one cannot simply pretend that the world is mundane again. They must live with the awareness of what lies beneath the floorboards of reality. They go to the grocery store, they attend school, and they drive their cars, all while knowing that a mirror dimension of rot and decay exists just a heartbeat away. This burden of truth separates them from the rest of the world, creating a secret brotherhood of those who know. It teaches us that growing up often involves carrying heavy truths that cannot be shared with everyone, learning to function and find joy even when you know that the monsters are real and they are waiting. Yet amidst the wreckage, the town of Hawkins stands as a defiant survivor. It is battered, broken, and forever changed, but it is still standing. The community begins the slow, arduous process of rebuilding, patching the roofs and sweeping the glass from the streets. This resilience is the beating heart of the narrative. It suggests that while we cannot control the disasters that befall us, we have absolute control over how we respond to them. The town becomes a character in its own right, a testament to the human capacity to endure. It reminds us that destruction is an event, but rebuilding is a choice, one that must be made every single day when we wake up and decide to keep going. In the cracks of this broken pavement, hope emerges like a persistent, unkillable weed. It does not bloom with the grandeur of a rose, but with the stubborn tenacity of a dandelion pushing through concrete. We see it in the small gestures, a shared pizza, a tentative smile, a game restarted. The darkness of the upside down is vast and powerful, but it cannot stop the simple biological imperative of life to continue. The story shows us that hope is not a naive belief that everything will be fine. It is the gritty determination to make things fine, even when the odds are stacked against you. It is the refusal to let the shadow consume the light, no matter how dim that light may flicker. As the camera pulls back for the final time, we see that the gate to the unknown is not fully sealed. It remains ajar, glowing softly in the distance, a visual promise that the story never truly ends. This open door is not a threat, but a philosophy. It represents the uncertainty of the future. We can never fully close the door on our fears or the challenges that life will throw at us. We can only stand guard, surrounded by the people we trust, ready to face whatever comes through. It teaches us that the goal of life is not to hermetically seal ourselves away from danger, but to build a life so full of love and connection that the danger does not matter. When we look back, this journey through Hawkins is a long meditation on growing up in a world full of monsters. We learn that the monsters will change forms. Sometimes they are demogorgons, sometimes they are bullies, and sometimes they are grief and loneliness. But the solution remains the same as it was around the table in the basement. You gather your party, you ready your equipment, and you roll the dice. You trust that when the darkness comes, you will not be facing it alone. And as the screen fades to black and the synth music swells one last time, we are left with the comforting thought that as long as we have each other, we can face anything that comes out of the dark, even if the gate remains open. If you found comfort or insight in this journey through Hawkins, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. We will be creating many more deep dive videos just like this one, exploring the philosophy, psychology, and hidden layers of your favorite movies and TV series. There are many more stories to tell, and I'd love for you to join us for the next one. Thank you for watching, and sweet dreams.